I'ma do it. But I'm gonna be butt ass naked so the wind could just be hitting my balls and shit. Hey, bro, watch your jet. Watch your jet, bro. Watch your jet! They jumping me! They jumping me! Oh!
Hello, dear viewer. Airline food, am I right? Today's topic: height. A word synonymous with many aspirational concepts. Perseverance, potential, the betterment of one's own existence for the love of the game. But then, a random bald dude turned up with one simple suggestion. What if, instead of self-betterment, we turn this into a term of oppression for vertically challenged men? The material consequence? Well, if groups of wolves are called packs and groups of birds are called flocks, it stands to reason that groups of the dumbest men known to mankind are called podcasts. I commend their intellectual bravery, because every word these manlets utter serve as part of an implicit admission they sometimes choke on their own spit.
So science is science. Do you believe in science?
No. A lot of time, no.
What if I say that's wrong? Sun go around the earth?
But hey, the beauty of life is its transient nature. Time keeps moving, washing away the abject horror we feel, knowing the brainlets are among us. How fortunate we are that, at any moment, we can book a plane ticket to the opposite corner of the world and flee from the fatigue of our common man. Unfortunately, however, the Trump administration has made another daring move to make life much worse for everyone, and the further deregulation of airline services likely acquaints you firsthand with the concept of gravity. There you awaken upon sandy shores, stranded in your isolation, freed from the perils of mankind, but presented with even greater turmoil in its stead. Liberated from the stranglehold grip of misogynistic grifters, height poses a far more important question. Marooned on a mysterious island, how far would any mortal man get climbing a mountain towards freedom? This is a challenge posed by one simple game known as Peak. Peak is a cooperative climbing game released during the summer of 2025, populating the pages of gaming channels throughout the summer of this year and naturally taking the internet by storm. At first glance, one may be deceived by its cutesy exterior, but do not be fooled. Peak is a game that does not relent in its brutality. Death manifests in many forms, and it takes one mere mistake to become familiar with them. In this video essay, I intend to cover all the reasons I believe this game to be worthy of adoration and praise. So sit back, poison yourself to death with incinerated chicken.
I'm still alive.
No, I'm dead. That poisons you. I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm dead.
And watch as your compatriots sail to their death, because I'm about to explain why Peak is simply Peak.
Oh, that's not very good. Oh my god. I missed the spacebar hit, but I.
Oh fuck!
I'm about to blow.
Can't climb when it's fucking. It's weird because when your mum's wet, I can climb it like a fucking tree, but I can't climb.
At first glance, Peak appears nothing remarkable. Oh, a game where you climb a hill with friends? Chained Together already did this with a creative passion of several Unity asset backflips. What's the big idea? Well, that's the thing, dear viewer. Peak is deceitful. Waking up at the crash site, you are introduced to the serenity of the shore, a sand-laden cliffside dotted with shrubbery, spiked urchins, and rickety bridges. Without a word spoken, your goal is made clear. Escape awaits you and your comrades at the top. It is time to climb. Shore introduces the players to the fundamental challenges of their expedition. The first, gravity.
Oh, I just fell. Youch, okay.
Take a tumble too far in the ascent and you'll feel the reprisal of a broken bone one way or another. As you realise the dangers of physics, you discover a traitor from within, a rumbling belly. Fortunately, the abundance of foliage means you have plenty of coconuts and berries to snack on during your climb. The plateaus of the shore's cliff allow for easy traversal and even easier access to fallen luggage. These humble offerings of loot contain lucrative rewards inside that can abate hunger, mend injuries, and make climbing easier. Underscoring them all, however, is this sound. Any thoughts of turning back are scattered by the arrival of the loathsome fog. The all-consuming mist slowly climbs up after the expedition, serving as a timer for them to escape and a greater punishment for any who tumble down and are unfortunate enough to survive the fall. The main challenges of the plucky scouts are as follows: hunger, gravity, and time. You have to stay mobile, be resourceful, and be cautious. For the sure, these demands are not too taxing and still play into the naivety of the ignorant masses. But it's when you reach the peak and light the campfire that the true perilous complexity of peak reveals itself.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
The shore is but one of 5 areas comprising the treacherous mountain range. It prepares you to gather resources, navigate your surroundings, and move swiftly for the following zones: the lush rainforest of the tropics, the freezing plains of the alpine, or scorching dunes of the mesa depending on the seed.
Okay, let's try and move, maybe.
The barren caldera, and finally, the oh-so-treacherous kiln. Each of these pose unique challenges you'll have to plan around when persevering through the mountain paths. For instance, the tropics are almost oversaturated with tasty fruit to eat for yourself. Food is not remotely a concern. At a glance, the only danger this may pose is your friends trying to make you slip on a banana peel.
Oh, fucking unfortunate, dude.
Should have seen. Oh,
Double kill.
Excuse me, what the actual fuck you doing?
Where food might be plentiful, however, the tropics seek to punish you in other ways. In lieu of the shore's level platforms and evenly spaced gaps, the tropics' harsh terrain is formed from treacherous slopes and long hauls that will strain your stamina. Intermittent barrages of torrential downpour will slicken surfaces and slow your climb. Bundles of overgrown tree roots saturate the area with their poisonous barbs, blocking off potential angles of approach with noxious punishment. Aye! Loathsome pitfalls such as the kinetic force of an orange spore bomb and the overpowering poison of its greener brethren lie in wait.
I think of okay. Well.
All these specific threats work to impede your climb so that the general doom of the rising fog can catch up. And oh, remember that food you just ate? Yeah, I guess you probably should have checked the expiry date on that. Beyond the shore, Peak uses these segmented biomes to play upon the fundamental demands of your character and the availability of the resources to satiate them. From tropics onward, food becomes typically scarcer, and it means you'll be relying more on available luggage drops to keep your hunger down. However, the terrain of Alpine and Mesa are virulently hostile, which means access to fallen loot and their delicious contents can become precarious to reach. An absence of stockpiled food leaves a lot to chance, meaning the members of the expedition may be unable to traverse dangerous overhangs and nebulous internal cave systems due to shrinking stamina. Complement this with the frigid winds of Alpine's blizzards that can turn exposed players into ice blocks, and Mesa's hateful sun that can reduce scouts to ash. You not only have to navigate harsh terrain under the strain of numerous environmental hazards, but under the duress of ever-dwindling time. Fire it all! Fire it all! Fire it all!
Main goal is to blow up.
Oh! Peak goes from a presumed mindless romp with friends to an escapade of solving tense dilemmas while backed into a corner, where the cost of preparedness is measured in inventory space now, and later, how loud a scream your friend will make when they fall to their death.
Oh man. Atom is dead. Atom is dead.
On the merits of this gameplay arrangement alone, Peak defies expectations with its thoughtful management of resources and how they shift dependent on the zone players hike through. For something of such an obviously simple premise and design, it is quite baffling how involving Peak can be. The beauty of its simplicity has never been more apparent than the crux of a player's success during their expedition. The stamina bar.
Bing bong. Will anyone ever love me?
Please don't. What's up, baby?
If there is one thing humanity always finds itself deeply enraptured with, it's information. The acquisition of knowledge has spurned on generations of brave pioneers throughout history to uncover many of the great mysteries plaguing our curious minds. Back in the day, people thirsted for enlightenment so they could most efficiently enslave the native population of foreign lands and pilfer their natural resources. Nowadays, our toil for knowledge is waged in coming to know the best ways we can use Bejeweled to impregnate anime women. Now that, dear viewer, is a practical application of natural science. But video games are not all equal in this sense. The foundational element of conveyed information differs per genre and subgenre. Competitive shooting games rely on information to know what heads to click and the best way to do so. Strategy games rely on information to know what units to build and how to tactically oust the enemy with them. Melee slasher games rely on information to know which users in the lobby to racially abuse and leak the addresses of. Among all of them, however, titles in the survival genre are built upon a constant stream of information best described as bar chart edging. Hunger, thirst, sickness, credit score, dissatisfaction with line of employment, and girth are just some examples of the overwhelming cues informing your gameplay choices.
How about 8 inches and thick? What did he say?
In truth, a lot of modern gaming, especially counterparts of the mainstream industry, has been caricaturized by cluttering your screen with overstimulating trivia to sell the illusion anything you're doing actually matters. With this in mind, some may unsurprisingly assume Peak to be a prime candidate of this group. Peak's primary mechanic focuses upon movement, the ability for players to navigate their environment and ascend the mountain. The stamina bar serves as the universal currency of any and all exerting movements like climbing, sprinting, jumping, and lunging. This drains the stamina bar until either the player stops moving to recover or they slip off the rock face and tumble to their demise. Simple enough. So simple, dare I say, that it would put the players right to sleep. To make things more involving, there has to be a challenge. Foolish decisions that cause players to fall should incur bodily harm that, when it reaches a certain threshold, makes them pass out or die. They also want this to put strain on a player's ability to move, so then they want diminishing health to impose an upper limit on the player's stamina. So, in a traditional survival game, these would be divided between 2 bars. However, Peak also wants to build upon this challenge by diversifying each of the biomes with unique hazards, each of which would incur many different debuffs. Aside from the general pest of hunger, this would include poison, sleepiness, frost, burn, and thorns from Mesa's cacti. This overcrowds the screen before we even discuss adding a weight meter, as Peak wants players with more items to be made less mobile than those without. The end result becomes emblematic of that survival genre bar chart edging I described before, where the culmination of the supposedly fun gameplay is the arid sobriety of managing a particularly underfunded chain restaurant. But this is where the game utilizes what I believe is a point of genuinely ingenious design. Instead of cluttering the screen with overwhelming information, it collapses it all down into a single bar and only dares to add a second reserve when you eat through enough revitalizing food. Any status debuffs impinge the meter with segments denoted by different colors and symbols representing different culprits. Bodily damage from falls or hazards, known as brood, is also represented by a broken heart here. This bar serves as a fusion of the player's stamina and general well-being. If it dwindles to 0, the player is left immobilized and then eventually passes out a la Chuck McGill. This also means, at a glance, players are able to break down the intricacies of their injuries and conditions without needing to cede control of their screen. By combining the measure of a player's well-being with the numerous ailments detracting from it, it creates one of the most convenient and creative representations of health in a video game without then obfuscating the details that make it so fun. Perhaps my infatuation with the corner of the screen comes off as a tad imbecilic. Peak achieves more than just improving the convenience of a bar. Fixating on this for too long makes me sound like I suck for moisture off radiators while watching Nux Taku, but it genuinely should not be understated how critical this decision was in taking eyes off an expanse of stifling data and focusing them instead on the ongoing gameplay. It centers the player on the stakes of their expedition, the potential damning punishments of failure, and the ever-present allure of escape. It allows the player to learn through burgeoning familiarity with peril that the only way ahead will be as part of a team.
Eggs and explorers luggage, that could be huge. That could be huge, throbbing and veiny. We've got to get
Every time I come over here, you always gotta take me through this homosexual rigmarole, man.
Look, Ben gave me. Hey, oh.
Peak offers 2 modes of play. The offline solo mode for lonely virgins to brag how fast they can continue to not touch women, don't be mad, I'm one of them, and the online co-op mode for when you want to play with the additional hazard of other people.
Okay, I'm stuck in Oh no, I'm stuck with Monty! Help! Monty's trying to get in, help me!
What's going on? Good luck with that.
Monty, go back! What are you doing?
The contrast between solo and co-op experiences of Peak highlights both the assets and drawbacks of playing with a team. For instance, when playing solo, some walls may be too tall to surmount even with full stamina. If so, you'll likely have to find another way around without the assistance of a tool. In co-op though, other players can reach out to pull you up. It means if you lack just enough stamina to make the climb, you can lunge for them at the end and be pulled away from danger. This is conditional, however, on them remembering that they can do this.
Okay, that's bad. Youch.
More players means more loot. Also, each scout has room for 3 items in their hands, and at each campfire you reach, you are granted an additional backpack to store 4 pieces of gear. Ultimately, it means a larger group can ferry more valuable utility around, like chain shots, rope cannons, and even the beloved scout cannon.
Godspeed, dude. Godspeed. Oh my God.
This would seemingly put solo play at a significant disadvantage, but surprisingly, this balances out quite well. A party of 4 people means 4 times as much hunger to be dealt with, so then creates greater demand for a food source. Shore and tropics are just fine because of the abundance of food to forage, but once you hit the alpine, this becomes a food check. If you and your team haven't stashed enough food to make it through this area, and the barren wastes of Caldera afterwards, especially considering how tricky climbing Alpine can be, this will likely be the end of your run. Contrast this with solo, where you have less room to carry gear, but in turn, the demand for food is far lower, as you only have to account for yourself. Peak very obviously intends for co-op to be the primary mode of play, but without any cost to the single player, which, to me, signals the robust design underscoring the whole affair. The core loop of climbing, looting, and surviving is so fun and surprisingly addictive that playing alone still has its merits. But that's not all. Perishing in solo means the end of your run. Although there is a slight window between taking fatal damage and unconsciousness that allows you to maybe save yourself, there is no point of return if you succumb. But multiplayer games are defined upon the interactivity between players, and co-op games especially rely upon this to, unsurprisingly, foster cooperation between them. Passing out in multiplayer creates the opportunity for fellow scouts to turn back and save you. This creates infectious moments of high-octane action where, to the tense rhythm of your ally's failing heart, you are provided a narrow window to resuscitate the fallen explorer. Doubling back to pull your comrade onto your back, enduring the debilitating weight penalty to do so, and managing to pull it off, never fails to provide a rush of energy to the group. It's a clutch situation where success fosters camaraderie among both the distressed and the rescuer. Cooperative play also opens new avenues of traversal that solo play would otherwise lack. Ropes alone are useless, as they can only be lowered from above, meaning if you can access the desired position in the first place, then there's no reason to otherwise need it. The presence of others adds value to the rope, as while one player may be able to climb far enough, others may be addled with enough injuries and ailments to make it impossible.
Right, get ready to catch.
Nice shot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good job, dude.
Peak miraculously manages to make even the most intelligent of your compatriots suddenly develop chronic brain damage, so, unfortunately, this is far more frequent than what you'd hope.
We're here to adventure, ow, ow, ow.
Oh, well.
Peak's engaging framework for a climbing game creates ample opportunities for coordination and communication at every turn. From clutch saves of down scouts to deliberate sabotage of your comrade's progress for the sake of comedy, Peak isn't just about a fun time with pals, but also about a thoughtful approach to problem solving. Say, for instance, the problem is your good friend will outshine you at virtual climbing. The solution? Acquaint her with the untold horror of the cursed skull.
Rose, Okay,
Oh, no.
This sort of tomfoolery is commonplace in Peak. The game's physics system and interactivity between players prides itself on being silly, and it is made ever better by the inclusion of a beloved proximity chat.
Don't gamble this.
Yes, I have to use all of my stamina and half my...
Okay,
stamina.
can you get ready to pull me up
Wait,
then?
actually, no.
Know him? The ever-hastening development of technology is responsible for many of the amenities we know now. It's brought us refrigeration, transportation, and the ability to fool Joe Rogan with AI-generated imagery. Water scarcity? That doesn't sound real. You know what is real? Video games.
She is such a bad bitch, though.
It started with a ball bouncing on a small screen, and now I get to simulate imperialist conflicts without having to actually murder Middle Eastern children. Specifically, I mention this because, common to most titles in this genre, there's one specific staple that's brought this haphazard train of thought here. Proximity chat.
Was that a grenade?
Simulated distance affecting the clarity and existence of voice communications has always been a recipe for immersion and hilarity time and time again. Even the simplest addition in Call of Duty Search and Destroy, where dead players are muted, sells a rising tension of dwindling odds. Messing with a fundamental element of games to further curate an experience is so delightfully easy, but so intensely involving. Some of my best experiences with multiplayer gaming are owed to the existence of this feature. Peak's humorous tragedy of bean boys marooned on an uncharted island is enhanced by the addition of proximity chat. Any tragic falls are accompanied with the final echoes of a player's voice as it fades into death's nothingness, becoming yet another example of a phenomenon known as gamers turning into 5-star voice actors.
Yeah, there you go.
At long distances, voices just won't outright disappear, but at a loud enough volume, will begin to echo. This means those who stray away from the group to forge a path ahead, or otherwise prove the virility of their gaming virginity, will only be able to converse through the awkwardness of reverberating noise.
Are you going for a tomb? T-O-M-B.
Did you start with T?
A tomb!
My God.
The American education system.
But this also places a physical need on staying close together. The game wouldn't be very fun if everyone ran off on their own to do their own thing, a gameplay style incentivized by consistent audio input across the entire map. Proximity chat promotes remaining together as a team, because, when divided, an absence of communication will leave you unable to track your team's whereabouts or coordinate inventory management. The game isn't impossible to complete as a forward scout for the group, of course, but it does put you at a particular risk of a sudden encounter with a native inhabitant. Left idly roaming the wildlands since the collapse of his gaming prodigy, Yandere Dev stalks lone scouts in the hopes of cornering them for a thorough debate on the age of consent. At this point, proximity chat will announce to all the death of a comrade through the echoes of their shrill shrieks and the sight of their body flying over the side of a mountain. Proximity chat's addition to Peak isn't surprising. It's almost a staple of every new game that emerges, but it's certainly welcome. It doesn't just magnify the hilarity of specific occasions, but creates a true need for cohesion in the team. Hearing someone talking just to be usurped by silence stirs panic in others, as they have to guess off an ambiguous cue whether their comrade can be saved or is a lost cause. It embellishes the core of Peak's main gameplay, the coordination of a team, and helps turn a simple romp through the countryside into a genuine fight for survival up in the mountains. All in all, Peak is a great time with friends, and even a damn good time playing alone. With all the following in mind, it would be impossible to find much of any complaint to take with Aggro Crab's fun mountaineering extravaganza. But you see, dear viewer, that sentence is uttered with naive hope. Naive hope in a rational, well-measured world. But we do not inhabit a rational, well-measured world. Because if we did inhabit a rational, well-measured world, the internet wouldn't insist upon one specific word that makes me want to kill myself.
Can't see it, but like I could.
I'm sorry, in this version?
Yeah, I think it's
The 17th of March 2025 will forever serve as a watershed moment for the vastly unemployed denizens of video game discourse. On this hallowed day, Twitter user Bloody Mary took to the internet to stoke a wildfire that could never be extinguished.
IDK how else to describe it, but I call this genre of game friend slop. Its sole purpose of existence is friend farming.
I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more.
One message below, released a whole day later, Bloody Mary wrote that they actually were joking and this wasn't intended to be taken seriously. If this is true, this was too little too late. Once the proverbial cat was out of the proverbial bag, the damage had already been done, meaning that the moment people scrolled to the tweet and saw the word friend slop, it was basically over. And therein lies my personal gripe with this ordeal. Slop, as an internet term, owes its advent far before this specific tweet. It emerged in popularity when discussions about the YouTube meta of low-effort commentary channels and reaction videos became all the rage. Pyrocynical was a primary target of this discussion, per the reaction sins of the horrid Pyrolive channel, but it was then through his own adoption of the term that the virality of the word broadened, and, as expected, it rapidly came to lose its meaning. You see, what sets this word apart from the usual arsenal of concussion-inducing terminology is the vast majority are deployed with inbuilt irony. Giat, Riz, Ohio, Sigma, Aura, all these wince-worthy words I otherwise remove from my conscience are the hallmarks of meme culture today. The significance of them is often the comedic acknowledgement of their actual insignificance. If you are older than 10, these words mean absolutely nothing to you. However, slop differs because it actually carries a derogatory meaning. It exists to label pieces of media as effortlessly uncreative, most commonly for the sake of lining a wallet with fat stacks. Unlike its brethren, it actually intends to mean something, and it has resulted in an epidemic of misfires and false positives, leading to dizzying irony. The word intended to label things as otherwise low-effort, purpose-fit mediocrity can now be described with this label. Here's one example that admittedly breaks my heart to invoke. YouTube channel FlazeFire, a creator I adore and financially support, was on a hot streak of banger after banger until the release of a video called The Friendslop Epidemic back in the August of this year. Glimpses of snippets in the Patreon Discord beset me with premonitions of a potential garbage to arrive, and, unfortunately for me, they became a reality. The editing work is mastercrafted as per usual. This is the consistent hallmark of his handiwork, but the point of the editing is that it then embellishes a spoken sentiment with humor or sincerity. It complements what is being said. To my dismay, the core of a video's existence and its whole reason for existing can be best described by FlazeFire himself.
Abysmal dog shit.
There's enough to write a whole dedicated video here. The severity of the headache this gives me could emotionally bankroll an academic investigation, but there's an egregious point of note that stuck out as prominent for this general online discussion surrounding it. At first, Flaze acknowledges the redundancy of this wannabe 4chan term, and does so at numerous times during the video, but, unfortunately, there's not much wiggle room for a whole video when all you can say is this word is stupid as fuck, certainly not enough to squeeze in the sponsor for CBD gummies. So, in a bid to try and make time, the video becomes prolonged by the odd decision to evaluate the quality of popular smash hits like Lethal Company and our topic of choice, Peak, with the word he just repeatedly stated bears no meaning whatsoever. This section is also delivered with a particularly terrible creative decision to recreate the grating voice of a talking AI for around 10 minutes straight. Aside from the editing work and the sheer effort taken to talk like this for that long, this part borders on actually unwatchable. I don't know what Flaze is smoking, those CBD gummies got something rancid in them. It should be known that I have no issue with Flaze as a person. All his other videos are resounding examples of his talent as a creator, which is why I actually spoke about him in my Creator Spotlight video for 10k subscribers. Seriously, he's a great guy, but my frustrations are directed to the web of contradictions pervading the runtime. While saying this term has no meaning, he invokes a suddenly random deeper meaning behind it for discussion, and then pulls up some of the most arbitrary ways of measuring a game's friend slop rating, like how many Vanos gaming videos have been made on it, while then saying any clips of Lethal Company clearly arise as a natural result of it being a fun game, so it doesn't matter how many videos Vanos Gaming has made. Peak is labelled as friend slop, but wait, it's actually a good game, so this term that meant nothing 5 minutes ago needs to now have a new meaning appended to it, so I am now going to have to invent a new term based on the old term, again, supposedly doesn't mean anything, to take on a whole new meaning that satisfies my bizarre assessment that Peak is friend slop, but also isn't because people enjoy it a lot, aka having the source, a concept repeatedly referenced throughout the video that is essentially a surrogate for the passion and creative vision we commonly see as defining good games. So, when you pass through the, and I say this lovingly Daddy Flaze, 25 minutes of wishy-washy bullshit, you arrive at a pretty innocuous conclusion that has underscored media consumption and creation since we were drawing on the walls of caves.
Some games are good. Some games are bad. Wow! Incredible!
My deep, undying resentment for this nonsensical word exists because it feels to me like an extension of the ambush contrarian the internet can sometimes be. When days after people have shared a unanimously positive experience, someone turns around claiming otherwise, and suddenly a lot of people jump ship for ambiguous reasons. It's not the fact someone thinks differently to me, but the blatant flippancy of what is being said. That the words uttered aren't founded upon an evidenced and argued discrepancy in quality, but a desire to just cause an upset. This word levies an unfair accusation of unfettered and unprincipled creation repeatedly towards games that have come to define the brilliance of gaming as an art form and contrast the mandated slave labour of the mainstream industry. It loathes the transience of these small experiences like Peak that are better enjoyed with friends, the conclusive finite nature of them, because they're somehow perceived as being artificially shortened for the motive of a quick buck. That just because you have a bunch of bad games in the general vicinity of Peak, the actual hard work that went into it is justified as being overlooked. Even though games like Peak ask for a very modest price in return, and even though they were diligent enough to add a whole new biome, new cosmetics, and patch out any outstanding bugs for completely free, you still get people trying, some way, somehow, to attach this label of low effort onto them. Content warning in particular is a popular example cited by morons online because it released in the days following Lethal Company and wasn't around for that long. To them, it was blatantly riding the coattails of Lethal Company's prominence and then dipping. What these people love to overlook about it though, is content warning was free for purchase on the first day of release. Practically every single person who got it, including me, didn't pay a dime, and the developers, as a result, received basically nothing in return. So you can quite literally make a game for fun, make zero money off of it, and people will still insist you made it for a cash grab. It's disheartening, really, because it seems no one even understands that so many of the big games they adore now were made by developers who started out with smaller games back then. Not everything can be Baldur's Gate 3 with a 10-year roadmap for DLC to follow, and not everything should have to be. The diversity of experiences and the increasing ease of access developers are faced by is nothing but a good thing. It makes me irate we see the widening accessibility to being able to make something small and fun, have it achieve a deserved success that is unfortunately so rare for creatives nowadays, as somehow synonymous with the worst habits of the mainstream industry it doesn't participate in. What people don't seem to understand is these small games made now may be the precursor to the bigger games made later they'll come to love. But no one considers this, and I sincerely believe the reason why is because some of the most fervent proponents of this friendslop crusade are the same people who cannot touch a game if it doesn't have a gun and don't think twice about paying $20 for a cosmetic skin. This word, friendslop, means nothing. It has little to no basis in an actual good faith discussion and exists purely as a disparaging comment. If we abided by its definition, everything from Human Fall Flat to Power Wash Simulator to Viscera Cleanup Detail to Left 4 Dead 2 to Overcooked to Plate Up to Among Us to Mario Party to Barotrauma to Bloons Tower Defense 6 to Broforce to Jackbox to Golf with Friends and many more would be subject to scrutiny. All I've seen it used for is to detract from the purposeful concocted experiences of indie developers, making them shoulder the sins of the modern mainstream industry and its callous dollar gluttony. Peak, as a game, passing through the bullshit around it, is an undisputable blast. It took the internet by storm, and deservedly so. It was made by a group of people who participated in a game jam for fun and managed to achieve so much more with quite a bit less. Already, Aggro Crab have moved on to their next game called Crash Out Crew in a feat of unrelenting and impressive stamina. I wish these guys all the best, as I do for the team behind Repo and Zekas behind Lethal Company. These games have their less than stellar satellites, sure, but that is no reason to write them off as cynical or callous too. Sometimes, games are just bad. Peak represents a genre of ingenuity, the possibility of making something great, where people endeavour for the sheer thrill of making something, and that has to be one of the most respectable creative accolades a developer, writer, artist, or musician could ever exude from their work. For all the reasons before, and especially this here, this is why Peak is simply Peak.
Play it, baby! Whew! It's enough to make a grown man cry.
like that very much.
Yeah, let's
Why
not
is
do
it
some
getting
pussy
so
shit.
close?
Oh my god!
Hey guys, I've been AFK for like 10 minutes. What's going on?
I'm gonna kill you.